Welcome back, Pie the Corner. My name's Pat,
And I'm Shane.
and we would be honored if you would join us. How's it
Well,
going, Shane?
it's going good. How are you doing?
Good. Good,
Yeah.
good. It's kind of a like gloomier, but pretty warm day here in Central Texas, and yeah, just another Saturday come and gone or going. I was thinking about this the other day about how this last year. I mean, it's literally like 1 year ago
Mm-hmm.
today. Today, this the 14th or the 13th. That I basically was told at work, like, okay, everybody's going home. And it started, a week before or a few days before. And my manager's manager basically, said, hey, like, can you pick 6 people from your team, which is 6 or 7 people, which is just a little under half, that could go home for a couple weeks so that we can kind of get some of the get the balance right. So it's like 50 on campus, 50 off. It's like, yeah, sure, no problem. I found people. Next day, they were like, everybody's going, and it was, it was just that, it was that moment, it was that day and that week where everything just kind of snowballed. It went like kind of off the cliff in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like, okay, this is just turned really serious. And dude, I mean, funny enough, I mean, it's amazing to think that that's been a whole year, but those first couple weeks were pretty intense. Like as far as when you just don't have, you have no idea what's going to happen and what's happening. And I
Uh-huh.
remember you and I doing like FaceTimes and drinking beer, and then I was just like, I drank probably the first 30 days every night. I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, fuck it, that kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck it. So it was a strange time, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah, it's like the only time we FaceTimed in the entire existence of our friendship. It's like we
That's
had never
right.
even done
That's
that
right.
before, dude.
That's so true. We did it like probably every other day or something. Wow.
Yeah, I have a real strong kind of physical memory of that era, like in my stomach, just my
Yeah.
stomach just being wrenched, dude, and just such a gloomy outlook and so much worry, dude. If you remember, it's kind of absurd now, but whenever New York City was going really bad, and they were bringing refrigerated morgues
Yeah.
in and digging graves in Central Park and
Yeah.
shit,
Yeah.
basically thought the whole country was just going to be piling bodies up I mean, like millions, not the half a
Yeah.
million.
Yeah.
Even though it's really bad and we're the worst in the world, it's not visible. Okay. And
It's
that's why
yeah.
I think people aren't kind of mourning more than they would be. There's no visible battlefield, and
That's a good point.
it just occurred to me when I was saying that. Um, but you remember that? You remember that? We
Yeah.
really thought there was just gonna be like piles of bodies everywhere, just all
Well,
over the whole damn country.
and it's just, and you had talked about that visceral feeling that you have, and I can kind of put myself back in that, when
Mm-hmm.
I think about it, because it is something that was like that because there was so many unknowns. Just and like you said, then like the New York thing started to pop off, and it was just like, okay, this is really fucked up, and where the hell is this going to go? Because we didn't even at that point, I didn't even think we were like, oh, it's targeting older folks yet. We weren't even at that point yet. We were like, seems to be people with low immune systems are getting really hit
Mm-hmm.
hard, but it wasn't anything like what we know now. So yeah, I mean, I'm just like, okay, well, there's no food in the grocery store. Everything's, you have to go and get like the third, fourth knockoff brand of like everything, if you're lucky. And one of my kids gonna do, and like their school was completely canceled for the rest of the year, and from spring break on. I mean, that's well, I guess they did no, they did cancel it for the rest of the year, I think, and or at least no, they canceled in person for the rest of the year, but yeah, just really really weird, really weird, and it just, I don't know why I started thinking about that at the beginning of this, but just thinking about the day, like what day it is,
Mm-hmm.
and but how much has changed, man. Like we were talking about this a little bit last night about the science and how science has progressed over the last year to build this, create this vaccines in such a record amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I mean, like there's 500,000 people in our country dead, and there's like, I don't know, it's worldwide it's like what, like 2 million, or is it something over like
Probably
2.9 million?
we've been hovering around 25% of the deaths, so maybe 2.2, million or
Yeah.
something.
And yet, there's all of these things that can come out of this kind of terrible event, um, that are just really interesting too. I mean, like going from not knowing anything to now everybody's just out. I like today I went out and was driving, and it was like the traffic was just back to normal literally one
Hmm.
year later. And it's really, I've seen that over the last week really pick up. And it's just like people are like, okay, it's over now. It's time to go do whatever. And you know, just interesting how far
It
we.
is, and the variant strains that are, popping up around the world are causing issues like in Italy and Germany and shit,
Mhm.
and they're locking down again. And over time, they've been a little bit ahead of us on the timeline. And I wonder if, I mean, we're not going to lock down again. No freaking way. I'm positive. But we may have another outbreak and not lock down.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple things there. You're right. I think that there always have been a little bit ahead of us, because I just read an article yesterday about how Florida has been open, and there's a lot of those new strains are in Florida, and so they were expecting it to be a big outbreak there, like by now.
Hmm.
Hasn't done that yet.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, this is a positive. But I say that now, what based on what you said, yeah, it might not seem like it now because the numbers are all headed down, but there's always a 2 or 3 week lag. So
Hmm.
we might start to see that pop up again in 2 or 3 weeks. The other thing is I wonder about is, and I don't know, the vaccination, um, where they are with it, like say in Germany, versus here, where I think that we're really making some really great progress
Yeah,
now,
we are.
and that could really be a big turnaround. Now, look, I've I've known this for my whole life, just based on like having a parent who's in the medical field, but also just reading stories and hearing stories about the placebo effect, and how when people start thinking something's happening, that it can actually like prevent them from getting sick.
Hmm.
Or if they think they took a pill that is supposed to cure their problem, it does, even though it's like a
Hmm.
sugar pill. So I wonder if some of this is just like everybody's all of a sudden we just saw this huge dip in numbers in the US, and maybe partially the vaccines, but also there's like a placebo effect in some regards, where people are just like, well, I'm not going to get sick, and so they take what they're seeing as like face value, and thinking that they're going to, it's not going to hit them. So I don't know, but yeah, to your point, if Germany is always a little bit ahead of us, like Italy and Germany were, back
Hmm.
then, that doesn't portend well. But I'm hoping that the vaccines are causing that to not be as severe. And
Well,
plus, we've probably killed most of those really infirm people, unfortunately. You
yeah,
know,
the cold weather's breaking. That lowers people's immunities. There's some stories out that sunshine helps degrade the virus, in the
vitamin D.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
So it might be, it's a handful of factors that's caused the numbers have gone down. Because from early January, when the train was just jumping the freaking tracks,
Yeah.
our numbers are
30 some
down
thousand a day.
75% lower now, so things are looking really good. But that said, nobody remembers the official guidance. I don't know if it's the CDC or the WHO. You're supposed to get your percent positive rate down to 2%, dude.
Hmm.
And there's probably maybe about 10 states that are around 2%. California's down to 2% now. But Texas, when I checked yesterday, we were still at 8%. We've pretty much never been anywhere near 2%, except for when the damn thing started. I've seen us as high as 25% in January, and most recently it's kind of been around 12%. 8 to 10 to
Well, and
12%.
it is a lot of those states that were like, we're not doing lockdowns, and we're not
Oh, it is. It
mask
is. And
mask mandate.
if you look at the list of states, you can kind of tell a bit about their demographics just by looking at their numbers. You can make safe assumptions. You look at places that are historically considered like wealthy states, highly educated states, liberal leaning states. It's just, you can just look at it, dude. Like all the places that are the worst are like Idaho, South Dakota, Iowa, and not to knock any of those places, but they're all just so damn distrustful of the government.
Well,
And that,
and I'm going to say specifically about South Dakota and Iowa, just because I have family that live in those places, is their governors are fucking nut jobs, and
hmm
they are doubling down and tripling down on this. This isn't real. Go about your lives type thing.
right. And
That's why I was gonna. Oh, go ahead. Then
what
I'm gonna
they
ask
say
you.
matters. A lot of people might not think that what they say can really be that influential, but I beg to differ. What they say matters. And if they say something's not important, people are gonna really internalize that, and it's been very dangerous to watch.
Yeah, and I mean this Christy Nome, who's the South Dakota governor, I believe. Um, she was kind of oversaw that first real huge outbreak when it
Mm-hmm.
was like 500-600 people at the processing plant way back, back in whatever it was, April or May of last year. And was the one of those people that was like out there going, oh, it's not a big deal, don't worry. And of course these are all immigrant families who they're just like, they were telling them like, you need to keep coming to work even though they were all sick with COVID. But so yeah, I mean there's some bad actors in there. And I was going to ask you, because California has had a very bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
They've been one of the worst, and New York too, and those are pretty left leaning states. What's your take on that? What do you think this is?
Well, New York, just dumb luck, dude. The virus spread like crazy before we even knew we had a virus.
Probably because of so much travel in and out. I suppose that's probably why.
Yeah, and just the nature of how people live in New York City.
Yeah, they're close.
Um, Man, I can't really speak to California. I mean, I guess I would kind of join the chorus, uh, against California, where they just have a completely ineffectual state government, man. It kind of seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Every damn governor they gets gets impeached or gets, they sign a
It gets
petition and take
recalled.
them out and recalled. And now they're about to take Newsom out, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's a crazy place.
Yeah, I
Um,
wonder if that's just like straight corruption or if they're just.
Well, I want to keep guessing why it is, but you have to compare, the two biggest. When we say California, we're mostly talking about LA, okay?
Yeah,
And
right.
LA and New York City, and those are two of the biggest cities in America. It has to do with population density too. Um, has to do with poverty, racial and ethnic demographics. LA is a very, very, very low. See, and this is the thing. This is leading us into this. Everybody, this has attacked different populations disproportionately, and lower income people, Latino people are being hit really, really, really hard, and they just don't have access to the same, health care and resources that we do and that the white community does. And so there's just Abbott came out and said it the other day when he basically blamed the Mexicans, blamed the immigrants for spreading the virus. Um, I noticed sometime last year that the white community decided that COVID was not a concern in our community, that it was, they realized due to the numbers, and the numbers came out pretty early last year, like in the summer, that you could look at the clusters of the breakouts, and like in Austin, the biggest cluster, Southeast Austin,
Yeah.
Del Valley,
Hmm.
where predominantly immigrant community lives. And so I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's
Well, no, I mean, you're right, and so it's an easier way to say, for someone like Abbott to be like, oh, it's their fault because, or to downplay it because it's like, it's not hitting all the communities in Texas,
mm-hmm,
like you always
mm-hmm.
said. And so and then it's another way to be against any kind of relief for those groups because it's like, well, they put themselves in that position. They didn't pull themselves up by their
Mm-hmm.
gene straps or whatever, like their immunity straps. They needed to pull up their immunity straps. But it's a really odd situation, and that brings us, I guess, to the other topic, which was the relief plan, how that came
Mm-hmm.
out, and
Mm-hmm.
who that's going to help, and which in a lot of ways end up helping based on your economic demographic, and why Republicans and conservatives hate it so much, because it's actually going
Well,
to help people that need
yeah,
it.
well, it's very clear. I listen to the same people every week talk about this stuff, and the Republicans hate it. It has nothing to do with, deficits. They hate it because it's a glaring example of government working for the people.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah,
And they don't want I always tell you this, like they don't want Americans to get the wrong idea and start thinking, well, you mean the government can help me? The government should help me. I can actually demand, instead of just being against the government, this whole slashing and destroying government that we've experienced for the last 50 years, basically since 1980, really longer, but certainly since Reagan. And that's why they hate it, dude. Um, so it's a $2 trillion bailout, dude, and let's not lose sight of that number because I I'm getting they're tossing around so much money these days that a trillion starting to feel like a billion. You know what
yeah.
I
I
mean?
know, which is it's
And
not even close.
so $2 trillion, I think people are kind of taking for granted the size of this stimulus package, like they aren't as blown away as I am. This is a sea change, is what I'm trying to say.
Do
I think we,
are you referring to how it targets like
yeah,
the people
the
versus?
size of it, and how it's targeted, and how it's specifically targeted to historically underserved peoples in this country, which is almost never done.
Mhm.
And it's also targeted in a way to actually try to empower people and actually help them and give them, a leg up. It's a big deal, dude. I think at the end of the day, decades, it's going to be historical. It already is historical, but the results are going to be historical. Um, I only pray, and I don't ever say that. It's a figure of speech for me, but that they can actually figure out a way to pass an infrastructure package too, because this stimulus bill, um, combined with an infrastructure package, could be the renewal America needs, and that everybody knows we need, but you just don't have the leadership to move it forward.
Yeah,
And wouldn't that be great, dude? Wouldn't that be great?
yeah.
That's going to be the deciding factor for me, whether the Biden presidency is successful or not. Whether they can get a far-reaching, big infrastructure package passed.
And that is absolutely what they're saying that they want to do next, right? So I guess the question becomes cost, and then, but this goes back to something that was happening when his first days, Biden basically shut down the Keystone Pipeline, and they were coming out like, oh, you're going to get rid of all these workers,
Union jobs.
union jobs, and but if he's able to pass this infrastructure plan, there's your jobs, right?
So,
Because I mean, from what I understand about it, because I haven't done a lot of in-depth research on it, is that it's a lot of rebuilding, crumbled infrastructure, but with an eye towards the future and
hmm
sustainability.
yeah.
Which is, dude, how does that not make sense? Now, look, all these things end up having some boondoggles attached
But
somewhere.
you just have to take your medicine and hold your nose and swallow it. I'm okay with that, dude. This is the
Yeah,
history. You remember when we were growing up, they would call it pork barrel politics.
yeah, yeah,
And the pork barreling would be trading pork projects,
yeah.
like
The
you vote
road to
for this
nowhere.
and we'll give you this, $100 million for a factory for your constituents or
Yeah.
whatever. That's the way shit gets done. I'm okay with it. It's ugly if you look at it, but it just is what it is. I want to go back to what you said about the cost. I've been reading about this a little bit, and evidently, historically, the way all of these infrastructure projects are paid for through municipal bonds. They sell
Okay.
municipal bonds to pay for the
Hmm.
projects. So it's not going to be like this huge,
Money dump.
federal cost, from what
Yeah.
I understand. But even if it was, we need to um, emphasize the difference between spending and investment. Frivolous spending versus investments where you spend $1 and you get $5 back. I'm looking at this being an investment in America's future, that proverbial, American renewal that we go through, how maybe every 50 or 60 years in this country. If we are truly going to remain as competitive as we see ourselves and we have been historically, we need to completely rebuild and modernize our infrastructure for the future. That competitive and that efficiency will save us money and bring us, it'll help with business and on and on and on. It's really important. And I don't care how much it costs because it'll pay for itself.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was because I was going to say, and you beat me to it. Was it's really an investment. It's not just dumping a barrel of money on something. I mean, it can be used that way. Of course, some people are going to find ways to grift it, but
Hmm.
it should happen anyways. Like to your point, because it's like the alternative is just doing nothing and arguing about it. And this goes to, you know, sort of what we were going to talk about today, which was this idea of, does it matter if the Democrats have Republican support and bipartisan support?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there's also, and I think a big part of this right now is momentum. They have the momentum now. They've shown that we don't give a shit if the Republicans aren't going to vote for this. We're going to make it happen. Bernie Sanders came out and talked about, the polling that shows that people just don't give a shit.
Hmm.
There's bipartisan support. They want that $1,400. And I'll even just read this little comment that Biden even made, because you had brought this up, and I think it's an important point, about, will they do anything? And he made this comment talking about Obama not explaining and promoting his economic recovery plan back in the day,
Yeah.
and he said, um, that Obama was modest and did not want to take a victory lap. We
Hmm.
paid a price for it, ironically, for that humility.
Yeah.
So I think that is something we would probably not hear from someone like a Biden, who you'd expect to be like a corporatist Democrat, which
Hmm.
he is. But it's like there's some momentum there, and maybe it's being driven by, you know, the progressive voices on the left. I hope, maybe they do have some power after all. It's not just Joe Manchin now, But so I don't know. What are your thoughts on him?
I think if we don't seize this opportunity with this infrastructure bill, because Republicans are never gonna pass an infrastructure bill, um, we could get to the point where we're past the point of no return in this country as America, and that we're just like an old, failed, crumbling capitalist society that has become so poor and so resource poor that we don't have a chance to pick ourselves up. It's really important, man. So that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, I think it's. I also read something recently about. So a lot of people want to kind of liken the U.S. currently to like how the rise of Nazi Germany because of
Hmm.
Trump. Uh, but a lot of other people that are really learned people like Chris Hedges and others have talked about it being more like Yugoslavia in the 90s before it
Hmm.
broke up, and where we had the
Hmm.
Bosnians and Serbians and all that. In that, it's like everyone's living together, but when you have the crumbling infrastructure, you have no government support, you have no jobs, you have, no opportunity. That just leads to the fomentation of like, well, we need to start blaming some people,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
groups and tribalism and all that shit. So I think you make a great point that
And
it's
also,
like
see,
that
you
urgent to make
you
something
lead me
happen.
to another point though. If we do pass a national infrastructure bill and we sell it properly, um, as this notion of rebuilding America, it will give us a common cause and a common purpose, and it'll be a unifying factor, and I think it could actually bring the country together for common cause. Think
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask a question, and then I'm gonna read a little quote that I found, another quote, and then ask what you think would be a good way to counter this. So, what's a way that they can, if they, let's say that they can sell this infrastructure bill, what's a way to give that immediate feeling of like something being done versus something that like is going to take like 20 years and like no one's going to know it. It's happening, and so people are going to start to feel like they didn't get anything from it. So I'm going to let you think about that for a second, and then I'm going to read this. Um, so continuing talking about that price of not selling the economic recovery. That price included a backlash in the form of the Tea Party movement and a rise of right-wing populism. But there was important differences in the substance as well as style. Obama's $787 billion bill, which followed the bailouts of the banks shortly after 2008 issue, delivered a recovery that felt abstract and glacial. This time, the impact is more immediate and tangible. Some Americans will receive $1,400 stimulus payment this weekend with mass vaccinations, et cetera. So, do you think that if it's sold like kind of like, hey, this is going to help you down the road somewhere, that it's less likely to get passed? Or how do you think that they can sell this?
I would sell it basically as a jobs program. Rebuilding America and rebuilding the American worker.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have an ad campaign, basically, the typical, just the construction job sites where they're just, building stuff, and just the pride and the heart, this proverbial, blue collar American worker. And then you'd have pictures of like happy people who were well paid, dignified workers. Okay.
Yeah.
And those are the images that I would use.
I could see another angle too as part of that is, because I think one of the things that causes like, well, you want all this newfangled infrastructure, but people aren't skilled enough to do the job, is you train them.
Mm-hmm.
You offer
and so new
preschooling and education and training.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can say like, we're going to get these people that are skilled in this type of labor, but all they need is a little bit more understanding of this specific type of thing that is more, energy efficient or whatever you want, what have you, and we'll train you what that is. I mean, that to me is like, you do that and then you probably make more money, and you can make more money, and I could see that being a huge win if they're able to.
And I would I like that. I would make it a 10-year plan. You keep talking about how time is a concern, and this can't be something that, okay, is it interminable length of time? They call them shovel-ready jobs, shovel-ready projects.
Mm-hmm. Like you could start.
Meaning the second the money's allocated, they can, start, get the ceremonial, ribbon cutting, shoveling thing going. It's really important. I don't know. Geez, I'm all over the place today.
That's cool. Well, I think that.
Okay, yeah, I know what I was going to say. Okay. So basically, what this is all leaning to, as exhausting as it is the 2022 elections. Okay, are the Democrats going to lose the House? Are they going to lose the Senate? Are they going to, which historically they do every midterm. Mm-hmm. The opposite party of the presidency gains shit ton of seats. It's just the way America likes to do things. The Democrats can prevent that from happening, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure bill combined with the stimulus bill is part of that. As well as I do that they've dropped the ball. When it comes with the stimulus check, dude, people aren't going to forget that. People don't like it when you fuck with them and you act like they're stupid. Yeah. I don't care what you say. $1,400 does not equal $2,000. I'm angry about that, and I could imagine that a lot of people are angry about that. Okay.
Yeah.
And number two, minimum wage to just completely drop that. That was way more. They could have won the midterms if they would have just done a $2,000 stimulus check and minimum wage. We could just say done already. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, what the hell is
so
that?
It begs the question of, do they want to lose power?
I was going to say, is it like there's some like part of that really sounds like we're trying to lose. Mm-hmm. Because as you said, and I mean, it's like the $600 that they're trying to add on to this $1,400 was only to in my estimation, do two things: was make people forget about January 6th, and to fucking try and have the Republicans say that they did something,
Mm-hmm.
and because there was some support there, right? But you're right; they should have been like, no, we said 2,000, you're going to get that 600, whatever, that little pitty ass thing that they wanted to give
That
you,
shit just
and we're going to give you,
evaporated the second
right,
people got it
right,
anyway.
and it did, and I didn't even get like $600; I got like
I didn't get it. I
430.
didn't get it. Period. So yeah,
Yeah,
that second stimulus didn't exist for a lot of people.
yeah, yeah, and um, so you're right, and I also, and I think that they're like always. I mean, not always, but I don't want to generalize. But Democrats are really good at this. They're really good at fucking up opportunities. It's like if they knew how to play chess, they would be shitty chess players.
Mm-hmm.
Because the second that their opponent shows weakness, they give them like a pawn or they give them a fucking knight or something.
Mm-hmm.
To use that reference. But here's the thing, like the conservatives right now they don't have any platform. They have no ideas about how to fix things or how to make things better. What they have is the culture war and fucking Dr. Seuss, which isn't even that's a fucking complete non-issue. So as long as the Democrats could just keep, as those quotes I read earlier show that didn't happen before, keep pushing like what they're doing. This is what we did for you. Remember this. This is what these programs are going to do in this first.
Right, right.
Here's what this infrastructure plan is going to do for you, and just like almost act like they're not even there. Act like
absolutely.
They won't do that probably, but that would be a winner.
Americans really, really want somebody to get shit done. They want something done. This inaction and this gridlock, it's infuriating. So if they just to your point, be for something, the Republicans aren't for anything. They're only against everything the Democrats are for. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's it right there. Yeah. Tell me something they're for. We could say the historical shit.
Yeah.
But the cultural war, and that's just the classic, distraction shit where they just make people so angry that they just don't even realize that they're being fleeced, or that for example, every Republican senator in the Senate voted against the damn stimulus bill.
And that
what the fuck, dude?
I know, man. And that's like another one of those things where it's like, hammer them on this. Keep hammering them on it.
Mm-hmm.
They basically
would
told
do.
all of their fucking constituents, fuck you. We don't care about what your needs are. And you're so right, man. And I think this is another one of those things. It's like a softball thing that they're handed, and they don't fucking. I mean, so to date, they haven't taken advantage of that and done something with that. It's a really bizarre thing, and it makes me wonder, like we were saying, like, is it done on purpose for some reason? And I just can't. I'd have to think about that deeply to understand like what kind of rationale that would be, other than some corporatists like really want this thing, and it's like it doesn't matter who's in power. You just have to keep having the shell game. And the other thing I was going to say about the Republicans not having any platform, it's the culture war, because those are easy things, because all they have to do is say, I don't like woke politics. I don't like abortion. They don't have to do anything other than vote against things that can even be slightly looked at as that. But again, it's another way to make their base think that they're there for them, but they're not doing anything for them. And let's face it, like they have a base that's not maybe a little bit more upperly mobile than say like the Democratic base, but for the most part, they're not. They're just the same as any poor person on the left. They don't have any job. They don't have a good job or any kind of education that's going to help them get there, or healthcare or anything. And it just blows my mind, man. It's like they just use these little wedge issues to get people, and people just don't even, they eat it up, man. They swallow it up.
They sure do, man.
And it's hard. Do. It makes it like this idea that things can't get done in this country because of this shit. It's just such a boring thing. Let's move past that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's actually do something. And if it doesn't work, okay, we can say, hey, we tried and it didn't work.
And what's so funny about these people that are being manipulated with the culture wars, they think very highly of themselves. They fancy themselves as somebody who can't be fucked with that way, who can't be manipulated that way, and they totally fall for it. When are they just going to wake up and realize that they've been taken, they've been had? You know,
Yeah.
it's like as a human being with open eyes, you know, like truly wake up. You're being exploited. You're being played with.
Yeah, I mean, two perfect examples recently are the Trump statement where he's like, "Don't give money to the RPAC, give it to me." It's a fucking grip, dude. You will never get anything from giving him your money. You will
Hmm.
never get anything from that.
You will too. You'll get that warm fuzzy feeling inside.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like buying a lottery ticket. You're
Hmm.
buying it for the sense of something great's going to happen,
Hmm.
possibly. And wouldn't it be great if this happened? And then I could do this. And it won't happen. That's the thing, because it's the chances of it are like about
Well,
as
and what's so funny is like they give him money in place of like a vote for him. You know, they love him so much they wish they could vote for him again right now, but they can't. So they just want to give him money
yeah, right.
to you know out of adoration. It's such a bizarre thing, dude.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to love your leaders and your politicians that way. You're just not. You're supposed to be skeptical and dubious, and you know and
Well,
hold.
and on a very, it's almost like getting into that woo kind of spot. But dude, they literally at the Republican what is it, the RPAC
CPAC.
CPAC convention, had a fucking golden statue of Trump. That's a real thing. Now you can say this picture was photoshopped or this was, it doesn't matter. They had a fucking gold statue of Donald Trump at this fucking thing. And these are all Bible people. And it's literally, there is a story in the Bible about the golden calf and
Mm-hmm.
how they were worshiping that when, Moses brought the fucking 10 commandments down. I'm just like, dude, what is I mean, this is how far it's gone, to the point of like a cult worship. And that's literally what it is. It is a cult worship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna reverberate for a long time in this country, because it's gonna cause a lot of fucking slowdown that for changes that could be done,
Mm-hmm.
because this is a voting block. This is a huge population of voters. Just bizarre to me. But yeah, so I mean, it's like any rational person would look at that and go, why don't you just use your brain and look at you're being screwed? I think they're past that. This is like deprogramming 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
like they used to joke about in the 90s. Like you'd get pulled off the street by your parents and some counselor brought to a
Mm-hmm.
hotel for a week, and you deprogrammed from a
Mm-hmm.
cult. I mean, it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like that's what you have to do.
Right.
It's crazy. So I mean, what is it likely to happen in 2 years? There's going to be all these fucking Trump people that are dumb as shit. Like, meaning, like candidates, like Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
like Bobart, like just really not very smart people, and they're
Mm-hmm.
going to win these fucking races with zero idea of how to do governance, and that's a concern. That's my
So
concern.
this is something I've been wanting to ask you. I'm pretty sure you do know this, but I didn't know it at first. Uh, the big lie thing that we keep hearing about. At first, I didn't know why they kept calling it the big lie. I didn't know that there was this grand history of the saying of what the big lie is. And the big lie is you tell a lie so big and so preposterous that it has to be true.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep. Hmm.
That's what the big lie is. I wasn't aware of this until the media started calling Trump saying he won the election the big lie. And what do you think about that?
Yeah. So that big lie, that original quote came from, I think it was Joseph Goebbels, who was
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Hitler's
yeah.
propaganda man, or Goering, Hermann Goering, or Joseph Goebbels. But either way, I think that's true, and I think it, it's one of these things, man, where if there's a charismatic person, and they can just sow just enough doubt in you, it's easy to start making these other connections, which is why you get a QAnon. Okay, so again, I just go back to this article I read about the about Yugoslavia, and how it and Slobodan Milosevic and his minister were exactly like that, exactly like Trump. They would they would we would people the international community was like, hey, you have these camps, and these people are dying, and they're just showing you all these camps, these people are healthy. They showed one picture of a kid that was skinny. He's just skinny. I was skinny when I was a kid. So it's like, no matter, even though there's pictures
Hmm.
and literal evidence to show you that something is not what they're telling you it is, they still believe it because they believe in their charismatic leader. And I think that this is, you know, a long process that's happened. It's taken a lot of talk radio, a lot of Rush Limbaugh, a lot of fucking, Alex Jones, a lot of fucking Breitbart and all that shit. It's taken a long time to kind of get people to that point where they're broken down, dude. Like, what's the? I was saying this to somebody. I don't know if I said this to you, but or in a podcast even, but I remember right before the election, there was a guy that would go to these Trump rallies and he would interview people that were there. And one thing I noticed, I was like, God, they all look so tired. They look tired and scared. And this is kind of what that propaganda does ultimately, is it wears you down to where you're up all night because they're telling you the boogeyman's going to get you. And then Trump comes out and repeats it. And it's like, well, he's our authority. So if they're saying it and then he bolsters it, it must be true. So yeah, I mean, it's classic manipulation. It's use of propaganda. It's fucking brainwashing. That's what I think of it. What
Yeah.
about you?
No, I just wanted to make sure that you had this awareness that they weren't just calling it the big lie out of nowhere, that there was a historical context,
Hmm.
because I probably heard it for 2 or 3 months before before it clicked, and I looked it up and found out what it was all about. And I guess I was just surprised by that, but partly because anytime I have news on or anything, I'm like tuning it half out. I'm not even listening to what they're saying because it's not important. Like, just for example, like the only time I ever put like CNN on, and CNN's the only one I watch because I don't watch any of them. I can't stand MSNBC. I can't stand Fox. The reason I like CNN, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but I like Anderson Cooper.
Okay.
Maybe not as a serious journalist, but I just think he's a cool dude to watch. So, like, when I want to just put something mindless on my TV and I know that I'm going to be walking around the house, I'll just put that on and listen to the bullshit they're talking about for a little while.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm so not tuned in that I don't hear a word they say. And I just kept sort of hearing this, the big lie, the big lie, the big lie. And I just wasn't even paying attention.
Well,
I'm glad I did, finally snap to it.
and I would say it's important too to remember while that does have validity to it, that they're also trying to sell us something too, and I think that this is where that critical thinking comes in for someone like you who
Hmm.
even can say like, well, I watch it, but I kind of tune it in and half out, because they're trying to sell some shit too. In the first 50 days, Biden's already bombed somebody,
Hmm.
and I think that's important for us to keep in mind that we and I know that that's how I feel like how I am and how you are too, is we're not like partisan people really. We are pretty progressive thinking, definitely progressive thinking, and
No, partisan would imply loyalty to a party.
yeah, right.
No, no,
Not even
no.
close.
I
Yeah.
would easily vote for either one if I thought they were telling the truth and had a good idea,
Yeah.
and you would too.
Yeah, and I think that there's each side has its media
Let
conglomerate that's helping
Let's go
it.
back to the bombing for a second. When that happened, I was surprised because it happened really quick, like really early in his presidency, and obviously it was real controversial. But the critiques died down pretty quick. They know, they're like, oh, we're gonna catch shit for 2 weeks and then they'll forget about it.
Which is
Um,
true.
I think something struck me that like he made an agreement, like that was payback, or like a thank you to the military or something. It was like so orchestrated. It was like he agreed to do something before he was elected, and he had to do it because he gave his word.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
For the
yeah,
quick nature of it.
uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, man. Like, I mean, during the run up to the election and after the run up to the inauguration and everything, I was proud to see like military people saying like, "Hey, we support the Constitution. We don't support this like a president. We're not gonna be part of some like election fraud bullshit." But on the same token, I mean, a lot of these people, I mean, it's a business too. I mean, I hate to say that, but not down to like the grunt level or even some of the mid level, leaders, but ultimately, the war is the war and the ability to wage war and the purchase of weapons and the use of weapons. It has like a sort of a dark component to it that's sort of led by a shady group of people, I would say, that aren't in government really, right? That think tank kind of thing where they're like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you really need to think about doing this to show your power, show your strength, Joe. You know what I mean? So that you're whether it's solely round nose not to fuck with us or you saying hello to the thank you to the military, whatever it is. So
There's
you
so
have to be
many
real
things.
careful about.
There's so many things connected to that too, as well. We are just a warring nation by definition. It's in our DNA. It's in all our systems and structures. And one of the things they don't talk about as much anymore is the fact that military the military spending is like the hugest government jobs program there is. You
Hmm.
cut government spending, you cut jobs. And this is how these senators maintain power is by protecting their jobs at the Raytheon plant or
In their districts, yeah, right.
yeah, and so we have to be aware of this. It's not as simple as just saying, yeah, let's cut military spending, because when you do, and I hate having to have this conversation because I'm at odds with it, but when you cut government spending or whatever, or cancel a military program, you cancel like thousands or tens of thousands of jobs. And most people care about that, and most people probably would prefer that you don't take those people's jobs away. You have that going on. Then you have, the new weapons programs, which you have to test on the battlefield every once in a while. The
Yeah.
new and there's just so
Well,
much
you got them, you
pressure.
might as well use them, right?
Yeah, but there's just so much pressure and incentive to just keep going in the same direction. And then all these military companies that produce the bombs, GE. I'm having trouble thinking of some now, right now. Some of them in Southern California,
Northrop Grumman,
the rock,
GE.
yeah, Grumman, the rocket makers. Um, they are a lot of those are public companies, man, that have to like return and show dividends and shit,
Yeah.
and be profitable. And so,
Well, so there's a couple. There's that's such great info. There's a
so
couple
like,
things there. So first of all, like over the last 50, 60 years, most of our country's industry has moved overseas, right? Well, one industry that hasn't is that, right? So that's kind of a sad commentary that that's like the biggest job promoter in some areas of the country.
hmm
And you're right. That's why they can say like, well, we're not cutting that spending. And this is where that the whole military industrial complex thing becomes the problem. And I think that that's where Eisenhower was right on. He was like, this is what he was talking about. Is it becomes so pervasive in the culture that you build this shit, you build these bombs because it makes jobs, and then they're like, well, this particular type of weapon is used for this particular type of scenario, and as those windows start to close where those scenarios are going to go away, they're like, you're just going to be stuck with this bomb instead of using it for the specific scenario it was created for. That's fucked up, right? I mean, that is like let's do it while we can, and it's not. I don't think it's so. I'm not so stupid as to think it's just this callous like we want to use the bomb because we built it. They have these political reasons for it, or economic reasons or military reasons to use it, that are probably well reasoned out, but none of this stuff ever really fixes or changes anything unless it puts enough pressure on a government to do something to
hmm
change. Mostly it just kills innocent people
dude, yeah,
and
I think
completely ruins
that
their life.
there's only
You
there's only one time in history that bombing has changed anything, and that's Japan.
Yeah.
Just fucking dropping a bomb on a village. Yeah, you're gonna kill people. You're gonna cause a lot of heartache and misery, but it doesn't change the political dynamic. It's fucking brutality, dude. I
Yeah.
hate the whole bombing thing. I hate the drone bombing thing. It is just so barbaric and brutal, dude.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. And
And
that's
we
it's
do it on purpose, like just to punish, dude. You
mhm.
know?
And it, you know, shit, if you're one of those leaders like fucking in the Middle East especially, just digging in your heels every time the bombs could drop
And then you
is
gain
what
sympathy.
right, that's what your people want. You're sticking up to the US, you know? So it's a fucking self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you're not changing anything. You kill people, innocent people. Yeah, they want the shit to stop, but they don't have the power to influence their government
Mm-mm,
in a lot of
mm-mm.
those countries. So, I mean, it's like, what are you actually trying to do?
No
You
kidding,
know,
dude.
it just,
No kidding.
the rationale is not there. And I think it's like one of those gut things that everybody knows. It's like not realistic to do this anymore. Like warfare is just stupid. It doesn't make a change, just causes misery. But yet there's a lot of people in there, man, that are older and, you know, thinking about like back in the communist days, and they run the company now, and they're
Well,
just,
it still is imperialism, dude. Capitalism runs on imperialism. We have to go get the next resource, you know, the next hot commodity. Like, not we, they, but you know what I mean.
mhm.
And that's really still to this day, I think what all war is. It's a fight over resources, you know, whether it's some damn mineral in Africa, whether it's oil, you know, pipelines or pathways, distribution networks.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um,
That's a big one.
and that's what it's all about, dude. So like we don't, you know, sometimes we forget, but we know this already. It's for commerce, dude.
Yeah.
It's for commerce. It's to protect, you know, historically, if you look at
American
like a lot of
interests.
American wars, uh, the original interventions in this country were done on behalf of, you know, the rich robber barons like the Carnegies and the Rockefellers
Yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah.
because America all the way up to, you know, World War One, which the industrialists forced us into, where we were non-interventionists, we were pacifists, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I don't know. I think I said
No,
it.
yeah, I think you did. It's it's like a bargain we made a long time ago with very bad people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not moral. They're amoral, right? Like everything is just about it's a gain. It's making a gain, despite whatever kind of damage it causes. And so yeah, I was going to say that to yeah, what I was going to say was, so this is where a lot of this anger comes from about how dare you spend this money on the people, you know, because traditionally we don't even question it. All of our money that we give the government, I mean, a preponderance of it goes towards military and the buildup and the maintenance of American dominance across the world. Um, that needs to change, you know, and it's not communism to say that. It's not
Mm-mm.
socialism even. It's just,
Well,
let's think of a future where we don't have to keep humping this fucking
it's just
war drum.
this is tied into everything that's um, problematic in America. Like this is the crux of the situation. We are taking the common good in America and giving it all to the rich, the super rich, meaning the people that run the military of the world. If we decide that we want to reallocate resources and take from the military and say spend on American society and community and people and job training and, you know, infrastructure, that's going to be the fight of a lifetime, dude. And this is the problem. We're being robbed blind. We're being fleeced. It's just like we're basically dumping the coffers of American society into like 5 or 10 people's hands, and we've been doing it for decades, and that's why we are broke as a society, and everything is crumbling.
Oh man.
And but we have so much more of an awareness of it now, and people care, and people are pissed off, and people are going to fight. It's just a fight, dude. It's an eternal fight. The war never ends, and I hate to have to use that analogy, dude.
Well, it's true, man. It's like, man, you can't go to sleep. Can't go to sleep anymore. We can't afford it.
Well, you
People
can't.
just can't do it.
You never can. You know, this is just to digress a little bit before we end it here. I've been watching that Star Trek Discovery again. Or you told me you've never been that much of a Trekkie. I haven't either. I like the first one just for its cheese factor.
I
but
like
I never.
some of the movies, but
Yeah, but this one I'm watching, and every time I've watched Star Trek, kind of the premise of it, the the way it's kind of a metaphor for imperialism or America, where they're the good guys out in the world protecting space from the bad guys,
right.
and and it's all war. It's all just getting in fights and blowing the fuck out of everything. That bums me out, dude.
Yeah,
It really
right.
bums me out. Like, is this just the state of affairs, the state of existence, and there's just no point in wishing for anything else? You don't have to
Don't
answer
have an
that.
answer. I mean, this is the thing, dude. It's a great question because it's like right now there's really not an answer for that. I don't think it's because Star Trek is supposed to be that like thing where they use science and they use reason and they resolve issues without fighting. And the original show was like that. They rarely ever got into it, with the aliens. And
Hmm.
now again, like you said, even this one with all of its great storylines, it's cool to watch shit get blown up. I mean, dude, this is one of the things that sells war is when you see them bombing countries and you get to watch that on TV, watch the bombs go off. It's like fucking fireworks, dude. Like you said it last night, 4th of July is like
And yeah,
our love of this
it's
country.
human ingenuity too. People were in awe of what we're able to create and the destruction that we're able to, dole out.
Right.
It is mind blowing, and people do like to watch it.
Yeah.
It's something inside most people,
Yeah.
and
And they
it's
don't
not
like to watch is people holding hands and giving each other hugs and helping each other.
or two guys
That's
kissing each other.
that bores the shit out of them. That bores the shit out of them. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I think we could probably end it there. That was a good one. I enjoyed that a lot. Thank you everybody for listening. Remember, please do like and subscribe wherever you listen, whether it's on a podcast or on YouTube. We're all over the place now, so give us a shout out, give us a listen, and give us a comment if you got any.
Yeah, and for all our listeners out there, go check us out on YouTube. I know most people probably listen to podcasts, through a subscription service, and it just comes up on their feed, and they just listen to it, while they're cleaning the house or going on their walks or whatever. If you kind of are a steady listener and you kind of enjoy what we do, go check out our YouTube page, watch us. I think you'll get a kick out of it. I know we'll get a kick out of it. And also like, subscribe, turn on notifications, whatever you do to your favorite YouTube people.
All right. Well, have a great one, and thanks for joining us.
All right. Ciao, y'all.